Hello, everyone. Nasser Qureshi, Realtor Daddy from Houston, Texas, once again on Wisdom Wednesday TV show. Another hot topic and another hot guest. And we are going to get to know this amazing author that. Hi, Alan. How are you? Thank you for being with us.
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Fantastic. Tell our audience that, where are you joining from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently live in Athens, Georgia, with my wife. We've been here for about a year or so. We're both from Georgia. We lived near Atlanta for most of our lives, but ended up moving out here. Got a house, so it's been a nice little change for us for sure.
Okay. So, and tell us about your great book, Red Sun Rising. How did you come up with this idea of Red Sun Rising?
So I originally came up with the idea. I had kind of been like daydreaming about writing a book for a long time, but I never had the time to do it. And I didn't honestly think that I could do it. I thought it was just going to be beyond me, but it didn't stop me from daydreaming. And I remember kind of what started this whole book off is I'm really interested in history, specifically like medieval history. And I was sort of thinking like if like knights were around today, what would their presence look like? And I had this thought of like their squires like uploading jousting clips to like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, it kind of made me laugh, but it also kind of made me think like what would medieval society look like if it had a higher technological level, and that's really where the book started. It was with that idea, and I came up with a bunch of other ideas, and then I realized I had to come up with a plot, and everything just kind of got rolling. But yeah, the original idea was just sort of imagining squires posting sick, jousting clips.
Right. And if this character in your book, Duquesne, right?
Mhm.
If you also like in your book has a lot to do with power dynamics. So if this character, let's say, was alive and around today, in our today's world, what do you think that character would be
Yeah, they would
today in
definitely be
today?
politics. That's for sure. He has, sort of the power hungry nature that I feel like really attracts politicians. He, on the surface, is jovial and easy to get along with, but once you get underneath the surface, that's when you really see the ruthlessness that kind of lurks within him. So if I had to make a comparison, I'd say probably Gavin Newsom. It's a pretty good comparison. Says a
Yeah.
lot of the right things. I like the guy, but there's something lurking underneath there that might not be as friendly as his smile.
Tell us about this Church of Divine Inheritance that plays a major role in the story. How did you develop and the religious and political combination and and the real world inspiration? Where did you pull all that from?
So if you read the book, you can definitely tell that it is hugely inspired by the Catholic Church, and that honestly that comes from my like love of old churches. That's one of my favorite things to see, and to go see whenever I'm in a city. Me and my wife went to Italy a couple of years ago, and the churches were like my favorite part. There's also there's a lot of history with the Catholic Church with it being somewhat power hungry. And I think that the church in my book is very similar. But the biggest difference is the church in the book believes in, they say, life serves death and death serves life. So there's almost sort of a reincarnation element to it to an extent, more of sort of like a circle of like when you die your bones will nourish the earth kind of thing. So they're very at peace with death, and that really came from this book takes place 1,000 2,000 years into the future or whatever it might be, and it's basically the apocalypse came and went, right? And so you had post-apocalyptic societies, and imagine humanity survived, and then how would those societies evolve over another 1,000 years? What would the foundations that they have look like if they had a chance to grow as well? And it sort of made sense to me that this religion would be born out of death being very commonplace. If you're going through a post-apocalyptic scenario, a bunch of people are dying, right? And so it made sense to me that that would have sort of a collective impact upon the survivors, and the only way that they could really make sense of it was to turn death into something that isn't necessarily to be feared. It's just a part of the cycle that you're in, and what you do in life echoes in death. So that was kind of why I went with that, almost more Eastern inspired religious parts of what I created within the church. So yeah, it's mostly the Catholic Church, but the little wrinkles thrown in there.
Okay. You mentioned you're a gaming fan, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. The, Tell us a little bit about this Crusader Kings game connection in your book.
Yeah, so I don't get to talk about this too much just because most people haven't even heard of Crusader Kings. It's basically a game where you can play as any character you want in the medieval ages. So you can be like a count or a duke or whatever, sort of work your way up into being a king or an emperor. And that's how this book is as well. It starts with basically a lowly count, and he works his way up in society. And by the end of the books, I'm expecting them to basically control a whole empire. So within that, that is basically a Crusader Kings game. So it really inspired sort of the plot lines, a lot of the plot lines, as well as the decisions are made, and sort of how things are built piece by piece. So yeah, there's a lot within this book that basically came directly from one of my little video games, which I think is pretty amusing. Kind of when you think of how authors are inspired. I don't know how frequently Crusader Kings comes up, but hey, it worked for me.
Yeah, first book, right?
Yep, absolutely.
What challenges you had?
I had a lot of challenges. I told you I had always kind of wanted to write a book, but I didn't think I could. And when I finished the first draft of this book, I was like, well, I think I was right. I can't write a book. This is terrible. So I kept working at it though. My wife, her name's Morgan Swing. She's also a child's author. So if you have children, please search her because her books are great too. But she worked in television as well. She was a tremendous help in kind of helping me firm up plot lines and make things make a little bit more sense. But it was a constant labor for me. I rewrote this book like probably 5 or 6 times, and I would have kept going if it didn't get picked up by a publisher. Even when the publisher, the Moon Publishing, said, we want to work with you, I was shocked. I was kind of like, I don't think this is good. Like, why do you want to work with me? And they helped tremendously. Turn it into a book that as an author, you have complex feelings about your own work, but at the very least, I'm very proud of it. So it was a journey, though. It was definitely a struggle to understand how to write a book and how to put things together. And there's so many factors that go into it. And it was a massive learning experience. But what got me through was just never stopping. I didn't stop working on it. I kept working on it. It became a main focus for me. And I think that persistence really paid off.
Is is a series, so what's next?
Yeah, so we're hoping to do 6 books. We are currently I've finished the second book. The first 2 drafts really. It's in editing right now. It's in line edits, so hopefully we'll be getting those back soon. We're thinking that's going to release next summer. So we essentially just want to keep following, the rise of this family, right? Like the main character's name is Duquesne de Bordeaux, and we want to follow the de Bordeaux's in their rise to power. As I mentioned, these books, a lot of it came from my love of history, and I will be pulling pretty heavily from history for a lot of sort of the plot lines and the settings for the remaining books. So I expect to do books that pull from the Crusades or the Mongol invasion of Europe, religious wars, church schisms. It's just going to be kind of a hodgepodge of all the history I find so interesting. Will be sort of the driving factor for the books. So yeah, we're just going to keep following this journey and see where it takes them.
Do you consider yourself as a religious person?
I no, I don't, but I am very fascinated by religion. I'm fascinated by the impact that it's had on society as a whole. I think it really is one of the most powerful forces on earth when you look at the history of humankind, maybe the most powerful force. So there's sort of a historical fascination with it. I mentioned, the Catholic Church is an interest of mine, but also the Islamic Golden Age is really fascinating to me as well, particularly like the Abbasids and the Mamluks in Egypt and all that. So I don't know. I find the whole thing fascinating, even if I don't consider myself a religious person. I still end up reading a lot of religious material, and I do find there's so much beauty in it that I think it will always influence my writing.
So tell us about like how did you Did you follow a map or story building, writing, up, down, or down, up, and the character, the world? How do you do the sketching, or how did you?
Yeah, all of that. It was not a clean process for me. I think writing the second book was in so many ways just so much easier, just because I sort of knew, okay, this is what worked and this is what didn't. But I will say I started off with that thought I told you about, and then I went, well, what would the world look like? So I made a map pretty much immediately. I really love making maps. It's another enjoyment that I have. Whenever I crack open a book and there's a map in it, I always get very excited. So I love maps. So I made a map for the setting. And then I went, okay, well, we have the physical location of where this would happen. Let me think of like what the technology would look like, right? And so then I kind of brainstormed all the technology. From there, I just went, okay, let's brainstorm the whole world, right? So then I did the religion, and kind of the different countries and the cultures, everything I could think of that would make up a world. And when I had that done, I went, all right, this is pretty cool. Oh no, now I have to write an actual book. Like, I have the foundation. Now I got to do the hard part. And so from there, it was just writing. I would just like write, and I didn't have a good goal in mind. It's just, I was very insistent on writing 1,000 words a day. And I did that, but I also think that's why this book took so many revisions, is just because instead of storyboarding out everything properly, and having a general idea of what was going to happen, I just would start writing and I would see what would happen. And with a lot of work, we got it where it needed to be. But with the second book, and especially the third book, there's a lot more preliminary work that's going into them, in terms of story. Like behind me, I can't show you because my cameras on my computer, but there's a giant chalkboard and it for the third book that I'm working on, and it has all the research I did. It has the chapter names of every single chapter, all the characters that are going to be in it. So it's a lot. There's a much better foundation for these books. But yeah, for the first one, it was all over the place, and I think I just got lucky enough to have something that could be shaped into a proper novel.
Your Every author has a most guarded kind of a secret without spilling the beans, right? So, any hint towards that?
Yeah, so in the book, the religious figure is called the Lord of Bones, right? Like, that's who they worship. I know what that is. I know exactly what that is. And there's a lot of kind of mystical things going around it, a lot of questions, a lot of very intentional vagueness. But I know what it is. And, I'm pretty confident by the sixth book, I'll reveal everything. But for right now, it's definitely a delight to kind of have this secret that will kind of stay with me through a lot of the books. We'll reveal more and more with each book. But, it's cool to know that I have the conclusion in mind for something that's still 5 books away. But I will continue jealously guarding that secret.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and what is, tell us like about your restaurant or cuisines that you Alan likes.
Yeah, I like everything. I'm a very adventurous eater. Um, I've tried, I've ate jellyfish once. I'll try anything. In Athens, there is a restaurant called Cali and Tito's, and it's like Latin food. It's all across Latin America, right? It's not just Mexican. There's a ton of different food. That's one of my favorite restaurants in the world. I love going there. I love Asian food. Dim sum is like one of my favorite things to get. So it's everything. The only food I don't really go for is bar food. That's kind of like the one thing where I'm like, this is a little boring. Like, it's just, I don't. I would much rather try something a little more exotic, more out there. But yeah, if you're ever in Athens, I highly recommend going to Cali and Tito's.
A little bit tough question, but I'll be careful to ask. Uh, do you think that there are like unseen or mystical things exist in our world other than human beings?
Not, I haven't seen proof of it. I know my wife always gets mad at me because she's a big like ghost believer. And I'm like, I've never seen one. I've never seen proof. I love ghost stories. I love like haunted tours. I love hearing about all this, but to me, it's much more localized history than a ghost. So that's kind of how I feel with everything. It could be there. I just personally haven't seen it. But there are, you know, I mean, when you look at the world and the universe at large, and how all these systems slot into each other so perfectly, it's kind of hard not to imagine that there was a guiding hand in all of it. But you know, I don't certainly don't judge anyone for anything. I'm just saying I've personally never seen it.
Uh, in their festivals and medievals and Renaissance festivals happens around the United States and around the world. And one of my favorites is Texas Renaissance Festival. Happens in Plainersville, Texas,
Okay.
October first week of October. We just started,
Okay.
and till the end of till the Thanksgiving weekend.
Okay.
It started in 1974, 75.
Oh, okay.
Once you step there in there, it's like you have time
Yeah.
traveled.
Yep, absolutely. We have
So,
one in Atlanta too. That now that we live in Athens, it's a little bit hard to get to because it's not in Atlanta. It's like an hour away from the city. But yeah, that was something I went to every single summer. I'm a big Renaissance fan, enjoyer. I'll have to get out to the Houston one day. I used to live in the Woodlands. I lived in the Woodlands when I was in middle school, so I'm pretty
mhm.
familiar with the area. But I guess I just didn't get out there in middle school, so I'll have to rectify that someday.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of medievals and Renaissance and all that time, and I take my family and friends to the festival, and looking forward to it. So, last question, I ask this to all my guests. It's just a side question, but a very general and open question. What one advice, Mr. Allen, that will give to the humanity generally, to anyone that watching this or will ever watch? What is one advice that you will give to the humanity?
Yeah. So the thing that has really improved my life the most, and I give you a couple examples, but it's persistence, daily effort in and out. I don't. I will never be the kind of person that works, 18 hours a day. I recommend that people don't do that. But if you're putting daily effort at anything every single day, you'll be shocked at how fast the progress comes. I first learned this when I was 17. I weighed about 120 pounds more than I do now. I got on the treadmill every single day, and that's how I lost that weight. I also I've been sober for coming up on 5 years. And in sobriety, one of the main things you learn is take everything one day at a time, but you're also putting in work every single day. And that's also how I wrote this book. I had my writing goal 1,000 words a day, and I hit that every single day. And many days it was not easy. I very rarely have had that sort of bolt of inspiration that you hear people talk about, where they're just like, it was, I was brilliant. And I wrote 5,000 words, and everything was perfect. I like never have that. I kind of grind in and out, but it really is persistence. And I really want to make, sort of the distinction. There's a difference between, persistence and burning yourself out. I worked in corporate before this life. And there's too much persistence in that world, to the point where you're working, and it just exhausts you. So I'm not advocating that people overwork themselves, but I am advocating whatever goal that you have, just work towards it a little bit every day, and you'll be shocked at how fast you get there.
Mr. Allen, I really love to, I had a great time learning about you and your book, and would really like to one day, hopefully, see your book as a movie. Hopefully we get to see.
Yeah.
That will be wonderful, seeing all that in play, as a great it'll be. So thank you so much. We would love to have you again, and can't wait for your second book and in the series to come out. Thank you
Absolutely.
for your spending it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, and I hope one day we can meet in person at the Houston Renaissance Fair.
Oh, absolutely. You're looking, yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.